What's up, YouTube? Lawler here as always. And now that RLCS Opens have concluded for the first major and we've got our 16 teams, we can also discuss what is going to be the initial matchups for the event. And no, this is not predictions. This is me trying to provide insight on the changes that are happening and why the matches are what they are. And I put out a tweet being like, hey, I'm curious on what people think of the initial matches. I did not expect it to get the reaction it did. But the outcry has definitely been there. And because of the outcry, I figured, you know what? If about 60, 70 people are willing to reply and express their frustrations about this type of stuff, I figured it'd probably be a good idea as to kind of break down why it is the way that it is and talk about the initial matches, because there are some people very happy, some people very, very upset, and some like myself who are kind of indifferent, which is usually the case. Either way, we're going to break down a lot of different things, and I've got a lot of stuff on the screen. Let me explain step by step. The first side on the very left is the official RLCS 2025 rules. This, we're going to get rid of. I just had to have it there for your guys' sake. The big thing we're going to focus on is my little sheet here on the side. The important thing that the rules state is the order in which the teams are seeded. And that is as follows. Number 1 is EU1, number 2 is NA1, MENA 1, EU2, SAM 1, EU3, NA through 2, all the way down the list. These are going to be up. If you guys want to see this, pause your screen. But this is the order in which the teams are seeded. Okay? The reason for that order is based on previous international results. This is literally based upon most recent international results. At the World Championship, Gen.G got upset from the Pioneers, and it was crazy, and we saw a lot of chaos. That is taken into account and always will be, and it is going to provide us some pretty wild results because of it. But the thing people are upset about is the round 1 matches. Maybe I should have kept that up, but these are the round 1 matches. This is what we are seeing. This is what we have for round 1. KC versus Wildcard, Energy versus Gen.G, Falcons versus Team Secret, Vitality versus Twisted Minds. That match is going to be so good. Furia versus Healthy Chiefs, Dignitas versus Complexity, Ultimates versus Luminosity. This is APAC. And then GK versus Foot, which is the SSA full Spanish import team. Okay. Mobula, if you guys remember them from previous years. Now, before we get into why that is or how that is, the thing that we want to focus in is it better or worse? And there's a lot of conversations that we've already had on my stream, twitch.tv/LAWL, link in the description, come hang out with us, about why it is or isn't okay. If we look at the old seeding, this is what it would look like, where you do 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15. The top seeds get the most heavily weighted results. And that, I think, is a narrative that is starting to just in general change. You are starting to see with the imports that are happening, where you don't automatically assume SSA is a terrible competitor. Like, it's not so obviously one-sided. The difference is there is a lot of hypocrisy going on. A lot of people dogging on like, hey, we hate this import team. Hey, why is Razier's going to OCE? Shame on his result. Well, why do we have a full South American team in North America? Why do we have 2/3 teams of Europeans coming in? Why do we have full European teams in general coming to North? Nobody's batting an eye at Team Evo. No one's talking about strictly business. No one's upset about those teams. So why is it that we have that double standard when we're upset about other teams, whether it be Twisted Minds or otherwise? Like, heck, even Healthy Chiefs, who has Razier's, is still 2/3 Oceanic players. You have a really good talent that's available. You want to give them the opportunity to come and compete, and it can help build your team. I personally think, and the thing that we should most definitely have implemented, and it's the biggest criticism I have for Blast and Epic, is there should be a transfer restriction. You should not be able to input a full roster or a majority roster from a different region. I think if you start as a team, you need to, like the Chiefs, 2/3 Oceanic, 1 import. And then next trade window, you can bring in 1 more import, and you can slowly trickle in that new talent. But to do it all or nothing, to not give those players that are local to the space the opportunity to prove themselves, to compete, to learn from their teammates, I think kind of stinks. Because then, yes, you are just taking jobs. You're just taking positions. I don't like that. Nobody improves. I understand that for competitive reasons, maybe it's not the best for the team. But I do think for protection, which is what this is really about, it is about protecting the region. It is about fostering talent within the region. Not being able to just say, and they're gone, and just completely replacing a team is a thing that should be prevented. And after what we saw last year with no regional restrictions for signups, I'm surprised they didn't implement it this year. Very short-sighted of them. Wish they would actually change that. So there's that whole conversation. Something that I said we would talk about in a future video. That is this video. With that in mind, if we had the old signups, 1v16, 2v15, 3v14, so on and so forth, this is what they look like. And even with that, you still have an NA versus NA matchup due to the low seed. Buchholz in particular tries to balance it as much as possible. If we look at this list versus the matchup, the thing to take away from it is every single matchup is exactly 8 seeds difference between one and their opponent. Everywhere across the board, EU1 versus OCE1 is 8 seeds apart. NA1 versus NA3 is 8 seeds apart. And while every team is still having an advantage, because objectively you would think that OCE1 is weaker than some of these other teams, I do understand of wanting to give 1 and 2 their favorite, you know, the SSA, the APAC teams. But I think Rocket League in particular as a conversation piece is starting to change. We are starting to see, as more and more imports happen, that SSA and APAC just, they aren't such a free match of what they used to be. Same with MENA 2. MENA 2 used to be the 3rd most picked team in the lottery system because they're like, yeah, they're just not as good as Falcons or Rule 1 or whatever it was at the time. But the counterpoint has been, why is EU4 playing SSA1? Why is NA2 playing APAC? You know, it should be these two playing those. That is just something that we have had historically. People are resistant to change. I can understand and I can almost agree to that point. I'm not so oblivious to the fact of being like, hey, you know, you're the 1-2 seed. You should be playing the 2 easiest teams in your first round. But I will say with Buchholz, the benefit of doing it this way is every round after this, if the teams that are winning are continuing to win, they should have favored matches. From round 1 to round 2, round 2 to round 3, round 3 to round 4, this system will try to balance out the results, and your initial seed carries a ton of weight. So while, yes, this would have been great, they were using game differential. We don't do that anymore. It's just straight up initial seed, Buchholz, you know, strength of schedule type stuff, which is how the entire format is supposed to work. The whole reason for the format, and I know a lot of people kind of get this confused, but the whole purpose is the format can't do its job when upsets happen, which upsets happen. Upsets happen. It's Rocket League. Any given Sunday is so true in this game. It is a game of inches. It's a game of small details. Everybody strives for consistency. But the format can't take that stuff into account. It can only take the objective answer and say, if things go the way they're supposed to, which 9 out of 10 times they should, then it will give you the ideal matchup to make sure that everything is fair. And unfortunately, when you've got teams like Vitality dropping in the first round or Energy dropping in the first round, when they are the number 1 seed with the most favored matchup, it kind of throws things in a little bit of a tizzy. Things get kind of weird. So it's not the format's fault. I will say, though, I do think when we go from Swiss to top final bracket type stuff, when we go to top 16, or in this case, it's going to be the playoff bracket, I do think there should be some reseeding. I do not think Buchholz is the best way. I don't think it's the best way to seed a team when it comes into finalization brackets. I think for weeding out teams, similar to my opinion on double elimination, I don't mind it. But I do like a weighted double elim because it's technically actually a single elim hybrid. The AFL format I think is great. But I don't know. Again, a lot of this is just my opinion, my take on things and how things have performed and the way that results would play out. But I do and I will completely agree with anybody who does state Buchholz should not be the seeding when it comes to going from 32 down to top 16, or in this case, 16 down to top 8. I do think it creates some problems. But when it comes to making sure the strongest competition is rewarded for the strongest competition and so on and so forth, I do like that, because the counterpoint I'll make is that I have a really hard time of being like, yeah, K-Corp and Energy are the best, when every single Swiss, they play the 3 weakest teams to make it. They've got 3 teams who have an accumulation of like 4 RLCS points total. And it's just like, yeah, they're going to win the lopsided affair, and their only good matches come into the playoffs. And that's just not entertaining or fun for anyone. But if NRG is like, hey, man, we played a team that went 1-3, 0-3, and 1-3, maybe we shouldn't have the freest run known to man, because now everything else does create a little bit of competition. It now does make sure that the best teams, the best performing teams are moving forward. The teams that did go through the gauntlet are rewarded for their efforts with the higher seed. I think that's fair. And the format itself heavily weights. If you're a top 4 seed, guess what? Not only do you get a first round bye, you get an extra life, and you automatically make top 6. It's a pretty big deal. Hey, you know what? If you limped your way into the bracket, you barely won, you went 1-2, and you're out, better luck next time. But if you did make top 8, even though you're a low bracket, life on the line, double elimination, you lost your life, at least you get guaranteed into the top 32. You get to skip the double elimination bracket and open qualifiers. Like, there's advantages for players playing well, and the better and better you play, the more advantages you get. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I really like the format. The seeding, though, definitely could use some fixes. Either way, that's my opinion. Round 1 is going to be spicy, but we've got a few weeks to wait before we do. And in the meantime, a couple things to talk about. Number 1, in tomorrow's video, we will be talking about the new update. Some things about the new map have been showcased that look pretty dang cool. And some quality of life updates potentially for casuals. Things being teased. Outside of that as well, 1v1 tournament for Rocket League has begun. There's like 4,500 people signed up in just Europe. It's going to be bonkers. No Zen. My bet's probably on like Drawley or Moxie. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. Either way, still some RLCS in between now and the major. If you guys want to make sure you don't miss out on updates, like, comment, subscribe down below. Let me know what you guys think about the major round 1 matchups. Like, dislike. What are you in agreement with? Let me know. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.